Well, this is Court McCracken for artnurture.com, and I'm incredibly excited. Today I have James Navé here with me in my artist studio, and we're going to have a conversation about creativity for everyone out there to listen to and take part in, and hopefully it'll be an enriching and enlightening experience for everyone. I feel incredibly privileged that you've made time to come today because you were very integral when I took the Artist's Way course here in Asheville last year, and incredibly encouraging for me to continue on this journey, not only as an artist, but also as a person who cares about other people's creativity and looking to enrich that in my own life and in others' lives. So I really appreciate your taking the time to be here.
Well, like I said, you sent me a Facebook message and I said yes.
Yes, and
so
I really appreciate that.
I appreciate you asking me. It's great that I could come and talk about it. And the best part about this is we don't really know what's going to happen next.
I never know.
So we're right on the edge, and so we'll just offer it to those people that are out there. So I'd like to also turn my attention to you, whomever you might be listening to this, and just say thank you for showing up and being part of our conversation, and we both appreciate that.
So first, I want to talk a little bit about what brought me to the Artist's Way, and I talk a lot about it on my blog, Art Nurture, about how I went through a period of time in my life that was incredibly dry creatively and was really a struggle, and I had gone to art school, studied painting, and had graduated with these really high hopes of being a professional artist, and found that life post-grad was a little less than inspiring, a little less than creative, and was a lot of hard work to maintain my creative practice. And after going through a few years of that, I started reaching out for resources and looking for things that could help me along my way. Found a book on my bookshelf that my dad had sent me years prior that I had never cracked open. Felt kind of embarrassed about it because it seemed like the answers were there all along and what to help me on my journey. And that book was The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I started going through the book on my own and started to feel some of that creative slump lift from myself, and so I started to open my eyes and see what else was out there, and found a friend who told me about the Artist's Way course here in Asheville, and I instantly signed up, and shortly after that just really started to explode with creative energy. And my blog, Art Nurture, which started off a lot about just me and my own struggles and my own journey, became more about how we all could do this and how we all can be on this journey together and how we can help each other along the way. So I think something that I run into a lot on Art Nurture is that people constantly are telling me differing definitions of creativity, or what they believe is a creative person, what they think about the word creativity. And I'm curious, because you've been involved in this, teaching workshops with Julia Cameron for so long, and I'm curious about your own personal definition, and how do you define the word creativity or creative, or what a creative person is?
Well, when I first started with Julia in 1995, I came to Julia as a poet, and I came we met as poets at a workshop that she was giving in Boulder, Colorado. And that was 1995. In 1984, I started a business called Poetry Alive with a guy named Bob Falls, based right here in Asheville. And we memorized poems from the school textbook and performed them as theater for school students. I had never given the notion of creativity even a whit of a thought. And my idea, and Bob's idea at that time, was, can two guys memorize some poems and stand on a stage and just perform them? We weren't actors, we'd never memorized poems, we weren't storytellers, we had no idea what it meant to look out to an audience and deliver a poem in a way that could engage people and make them feel like it belonged to them. So creativity didn't really come into the conversation. If anything, we were just a couple of guys who wanted to try to figure out how not to work. So we figured if you can recite poetry and travel around, rather than like punch a clock, you'd probably have a little more fun.
Right.
And that's how it all started. So as we proceeded through that, a lot of the issues around creativity emerged for me issues Julia deals with in the artist way, and yet I didn't really understand what they were. Things like, well, okay, I memorized 200 poems. Could I write a poem? And I thought, well, no, I can't do that. I'm not a poet. Well, I didn't know that was like little self being internal critic. Mm-hmm. So I didn't. And then I thought, well, maybe I could try it. And so finally I built up the courage to do it. And there was a lot of fear in writing poetry because I was memorizing a lot of poems. And I still didn't know that was an issue of creativity. I didn't have any basis for figuring that out. So as I stumbled along, I began to get more of a sense of I was a creative person because people would label me as that. Mm-hmm. Oh, you guys are poets. You guys are really creative. And I'm like, who, me? Me? I'm creative. So when I met Julia, we started teaching creativity workshops. And this is when the question of what is creativity moved to the foreground. Mm-hmm. So at first I thought I was a creativity teacher. And then somewhere along the way I realized that you can't teach creativity. That's just not possible. You can facilitate it. You can set a great dinner table, invite people to come in and sit around and have a good salon conversation. You can do what you did for me. Say, I have a blog and I'm interested in it and I took your Artist Way course and can you come down here and can we have this conversation? And then somebody sees what we have to say and they carry it to somebody else. Mm-hmm. So it's a facilitation. So I learned fast that you couldn't teach it. So I still hadn't defined it. Mm-hmm. So then we get into this long conversation about, do you really think I'm creative? Well, what about me? Do you think I'm creative? Well, I don't know. I don't have a creative bone in my body. And I've been doing it. I'm just an accountant. Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I finally came around after all this time of teaching with Julia and teaching on my own and generating my own poems and being in the craft and being in the discipline as you are here. You come down to your studio, you make your art, you stay true to your craft and true to your vibe, and suddenly you have a body of work. So as I've gone through that, I've come to think that creativity is a DNA imperative and that it simply exists as a core element that propels our species forward, good or bad, into its survival mode almost. Mm-hmm. So we cannot ever, as a species, cease to be creative. So how do you define creativity? I define creativity as life itself, mm-hmm. and the abundance that's around us. And instead of asking the question, am I creative? Really the question is, am I willing to be aware of all of the creative opportunities that are around me? And am I willing to define creativity in the broadest sense, which is to say every move I make has this creative element involved in it, in its function. And it's there for the taking. All I have to do is participate in it. Mm-hmm. Now the direction you take it in is very different. That's a different conversation. So that's my long definition of creativity. So when somebody says, I don't have a creative bone in their body, that's really wrong, because every bony, what is a bony? Every bone is creative, mm-hmm. and every bit of what you are, it's all about making things. Creative people make things, and we all make things. Everybody does it. Mm-hmm.